Can you believe it's been 27 years since 1966? That makes me feel too old. Too old, guys. But, yeah, you know who's also old? Mario. He's really been blowing up in the mainstream, huh? He's been in countless different games, the face of a theme park, and even a blockbuster movie. And in some ways, it kind of always feels like he's been this versatile megastar. Nintendo has really allowed Mario to be in very out-of-the-box games, taking key leaps of faith with various other game studios. Not every franchise can make a quality splash in every genre, yet so many hold a fondness for something like Super Mario RPG, which really feels so strange compared to the original Mario games. My biggest question, having never played the original, is does this game actually stand the test of time? Is it still fun to play even if you have no nostalgia blinders? And is the hype real? Well, let's talk about it. So let's start with what I think everybody was immediately hit by in that first trailer, and that is the graphics. My god, they are so good. They feel so refreshed, vibrant, crispy, modern, and yet they still have a really nice retro look to them. I think something that has always made Super Mario RPG stand out is that isometric look, and I imagine it was one of the first games to do that, certainly the first Mario game to do that, and it really allows the world to feel more open and alive than perhaps a top-down look, which might make things feel more toyish or as if you're playing like a board game. There's so many fun details, the plants gently sway, there's smoke that comes in and out of the light of windows, beautiful water reflections. You could just really feel that they took every part of this game and packed it with loving details. And honestly, the huge highlight for me has been the cutscenes. The cutscenes really elevate this game to a new level, and I think they allow for different camera movements that, again, help my brain further imagine what this world looks like past the single angle that I tend to see it at. It's also really cool that before each boss fight, you get this tiny little transition that shows the boss, he does a cool little move, and then the battle starts. It allows the bosses to have a bit of extra character and a bit of like an epic transition into what is meant to be big battles. And overall, for Super Mario RPG style, you can really feel them walking this line of Mario, we've got Koopas, things are colorful, but also definitely Final Fantasy shenanigans. It has a gritty look to it, the colors are sometimes a little more muted, and things feel a bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but there's like a medieval grittiness to some of the towns. And I feel like we just don't see that from anything that Mario does these days. And something that I would consider a classic JRPG thing is enemies that just look absurd. Their designs are so over the top, they make no real connection to the universe you're in, or maybe even the specific habitat you're in. Some of the enemies are just so random. And oh man, the music? I really didn't realize that so many iconic songs for Nintendo are from this game. Again, we kind of have a really nice balance between Mario and crazy Final Fantasy. It's able to juggle upbeat, jazzy Mario vibes with a more epic, orchestrated feel that is closer to an over-the-top JRPG. There's a lot of fantastical music for the different environments, and I think the only thing that I really wish would be different is that they could have had a rotation of the battle music. I think that it's just kind of a sign of the times that this game is from, but I do think ultimately, as good as the battle song is, hearing it over and over and over again, it gets a little old. But yeah, they've really gone in and given all these retro songs total reorchestration. They all sound amazing. And yeah, with Mario Kart 8 having had live orchestrated music for its game, I wouldn't be surprised if this game got something similar. I mean, you can really feel a great quality to the recordings of the songs. They keep to their original energy, but they feel so revamped. Yeah, the music, it's killer. Alright, let's talk about the story, because I feel like with any RPG, the stories can tend to be a little crazy. Crazy long, crazy full of detail and random shenanigans, just a little off the rails sometimes. And I'll be the first to say that I am not a huge JRPG person. Often they require a lot of reading, they have a lot of fluff and filler content to pad out a game that is already way too long, and I feel like they can be really self-serious, but not actually always have a lot to say. The plots can be a little basic, but feel over the top because the world setting is just crazy. And so that was kind of a fear of mine going into Super Mario RPG. While the plot itself is pretty basic so far in my experience, the two original characters that join the party have much deeper personalities than I would have expected. We have Mallow, who has this really adorable design that feels like nothing else we've seen in the Mario universe. He is characterized as being a bit emotional, maybe a bit of a scaredy cat, but ultimately kind-hearted, and I feel like his thing is trying to figure out what is his true past. Where did Mallow come from? And then on the other end, we have Gino. He's this stoic, very epic, quiet hero with a soul from unknown origins, and I'm like very interested to see where the story goes with these characters. The writing itself for all the dialogue in this game is also super funny. A lot of jokes that you just wouldn't see in your normal Mario game these days. It isn't afraid to say like off-color things or jokes, and it never feels too paint by the numbers. Even if the plot itself is kind of basic, I feel like the writing allows it to feel more fun and interesting. I think for Mario, it's okay for the game to never feel too serious. So many things are goofy in this universe, and I think that it ultimately feels good that the game is willing to have a lot of jokes, and those jokes land, even if the plot itself is kind of whatever. For the plot, I think that when this game came out, it would have been more mind-blowing. We start with a classic introduction battle, Mario fighting Bowser, saving Peach in the castle, and it's pretty quickly that we realize that Bowser won't be our true bad guy in this game. And this might have been one of the earlier renditions to do that concept, but nowadays, you know, decades later, I feel like we've seen this a lot. And I think that what doesn't allow it to work for me so far is that the Sword Clan bad guy family, they just don't really hit for me. You find out pretty immediately that they're the real bad guys taking over the castle, but I don't really have a good understanding of why they're doing this or where they come from. They feel kind of random, and I'm also not a huge fan of their designs. It feels like they stick googly eyes onto swords, and it just is kind of whatever. The various bosses I've fought also don't feel like they have a lot of build up to them. We have these little areas that we're going through, and then you eventually kind of just fight a boss, and it's just never feels like that big of a deal. But, you know, because it's the original, I'm kind of willing to give it that grace. It doesn't have to be perfect, and the writing, because of its jokes and the character writing, is enough that the plot is okay, and that doesn't bother me. Alright, can we actually take Mario and throw him in a turn-based RPG and not have it feel weird? And of course, we now live in the modern world, and we know that that's a yes, a total yes. We have turn-based Mario with action commands to strengthen your attacks or your blocks of attacks. For a lot of these action commands, ultimately, most of them are just learning when to time a single A press, and for what it is, it's fine. The move pool is pretty limited, especially at the beginning of the game, so I find myself sort of doing the same moves over and over and over again. But as I get more partners, you know, it's expected that that kind of changes, and there's a bit more strategy. I will say that as I was learning the game at the beginning, I did find myself dying quite a few times. It took me a bit to figure out the rhythm of the battles, and I found that if you're bad at blocking, you just take a lot of damage. And of course, this is an old game, So it has an old school save system. So you can lose a lot of progress if you aren't mindful, which I always find really annoying. I really hate dying in a battle, especially early in the game, and then potentially having to be thrown backwards and have to re-go through a tutorial, redo a bunch of battles that I already did. It definitely feels like this sort of save when you find a save block sort of mechanic. It really ultimately just makes me happy that we, for the most part, don't live in that timeline anymore, that autosaves have become such a thing. But that all being said, I am not a huge turn-based gamer, so I don't think the gameplay was ever gonna be a highlight for me, but it also isn't a detraction, you know? I think it's mostly just fine, it's fun enough, and you know, overall, with both gameplay and story, I feel like I have a lot of grace because I imagine that these were things that felt revolutionary at the time and now feel kind of old school just because they've been done so much better. But that all being said, I feel like Super Mario RPG is what making a remake is all about. We're taking something classic and bringing it into the new age. And even though I never played this game as a kid, I find myself feeling very nostalgic playing it. I really am smiling as I listen to the music, I love the characters, and even though I'm maybe halfway through the game, I feel like this game has made a really big impression on me and is gonna be a highlight for my year. It's able to take something that would otherwise feel old and clunky and make it feel so accessible to a new audience. And I really think that if not for this remake, I never would have played this game. So does Mario RPG actually stand the test of time? So far my playthrough, I'm just gonna say yes. Turns out, not only is the hype real, but it's been lovingly nurtured into a form today that truly allows the hype to spread to anyone, regardless of nostalgia. This has been my hope for Nintendo for so long now, to take their classic games and make them accessible in this modern age. Many are fairly critical of remakes for concerns of them being done poorly or being sold just for big bucks, but when done right, I think it's totally worth it. Most people on the planet have not played something like Super Mario RPG, and this remake gives it such a good second life. Anywho, huge thanks for watching, guys. Have you tried Super Mario RPG? And if so, how's it measuring up to your taste? I'm truly surprised it's been such a hit with me, and I'm really excited to get back to it. And, well, that should about do it. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know how your day's going, and I'll see you guys around. Bye!